Am I the a-hole for telling my niece what her dad did and causing him to be uninvited from her wedding? I, female 34, had a bad history with my brother-in-law for years, and I got contact after he got me kicked out of my university that he worked in by telling a lie and ruining my future. I got a restraining order against him later, but my parents were against it. I still had/have a close relationship with my niece. She and my sister visited alone, and then began seeing her out or at my place. But my family pressured me to not disclose to her the reason of no contact with brother-in-law. So as my niece grew up, she thought we had a normal family dispute and tried to get us to reconcile many times, being encouraged by my sister and parents. But I got my niece to stop when she was 19. Now she's 21 and getting married soon. I got a wedding invite from her, and I felt cornered because there was no way I'd come knowing my brother-in-law will be there. Declining to go would be devastating for her as she always seek my support. So I returned the invitation and made up an excuse so I won't attend. But my niece came to ask why I hate her dad so much that I can't even show up to her wedding. I tried to vaguely explain that her dad wasn't a nice person to me, but she demanded to know exactly what he did, saying unless I put her in the picture, she won't talk to me again. So I ended up telling her, and she left without saying anything. Then my sister called and was crying, saying my niece just uninvited her dad to the wedding because of whatever nonsense I told her about him, and ruined not just the event, but the family relationship. She said it's been years, and I was crazy to even still be remembering what happened. Then she said she won't let me alienate my niece from her dad, which she claimed to be my endgame. My parents were upset too, and said it caused this problem when I had the choice to show up to the wedding and not to deal with my brother-in-law because there will be other family there, thinking I should just go and we'll be fine. I only had Mike on my side. He helped me with the restraining order and keeps saying my niece had to know eventually. But I know this was horrible timing, and because of what I did, my brother-in-law can't attend his own daughter's wedding, now that she's saying she'd call it off if my family keep pressuring her to reinvite him. They're demanding I fix it, but Mike says I'm good. He could just be saying this because he's on my side. Backstory: my brother-in-law wanted the money my grandmother left to go to my niece, but my parents used it for my college education. I went to the college my brother-in-law works in. He's a professor, and he falsely accused me of cheating and advocating/encouraging groups to cheat and had me kicked out. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hall. Your brother-in-law sounds like a real piece of work. Who thinks it's okay to lie and get someone kicked out of the university? Crazy how a university would expel a person for cheating with absolutely zero evidence whatsoever. You'd be shocked about the crap people get kicked out for with no evidence besides a flimsy excuse. Not today, Hull. Welcome to my favorite letter on a family bingo card. E for enabling abusers. Shut up, you. Having a problem with your tormentor is shattering our family illusion. And, well, golly, it's downright inconvenient. Creating drama, I say. What? You didn't actually expect us to back you up against a guy so bad you were granted a restraining order, did you? Your sister is married to him, and it would take backbone to figure that out. Staying quiet until your niece was 21 was already swallowing enough for the children or for the family. She cornered you and made you choose between giving her the truth or suffering yet another injustice at the hands of your tormentor by losing her too. You didn't create crap. He was an awful person, and your sucky family is reaping what they sowed when they decided to sweep his actions under the rug and value the life normalcy over the life and future of their daughter. Screw them. Not today, Hull. The backstory blows my mind. It sounds like he punished you for what your parents did. How the hell does he even get a say in what the family does with their inheritance? Oh, he specifically doesn't. It does sound like the money was earmarked for his child, though. And Opie, please correct me if I misunderstood. By virtue of being related to Grandma. And I could understand a parent being angry if that money meant for their child being taken by other family. It doesn't excuse his behavior. What he did was reprehensible. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my son deal with rotting meat? I go hunting every year. I'm not a trophy hunter by any means. I do it for meat and almost purely for economic reasons at this point. Taking a few of deer off my property once a year keeps my freezer stocked, and the grocery bill way down, which is important because finances can be tight sometimes. As a little relevant background, the bulk of the meat is kept in a large freezer in the garage, and about once a week we pull out what we will need for the next week or so, which means the freezer is normally only opened about once a week. My son, 15, has decided that he is vegetarian about 6 months ago, which my wife and I have no problems with. We started making meatless meals twice a week and made sure every other dinner was such that the meat was separate from everything else so he could still eat with us. This has been working great for the last 6 months with no complaints. However, last week when I pulled the meat for the week out of our freezer in the garage, he decided to come behind me and unplug the freezer. I guess he thought we weren't doing enough to support his cause? He never even spoke to us or complained about our twice-a-week setup prior to unplugging the freezer. Well, as you can imagine, with a now unrefrigerated pile of meat in the summer heat, it didn't take long for the meat to start to rot and stink. The freezer kept the smell in for a while, so by the time we finally noticed, everything was completely putrid. I asked my son if he knew what happened, and he proudly said that he had unplugged it on purpose, and now we would have to be meat-free. I told him that he didn't have the right to ruin a freezer full of meat and raise the family's grocery bill without discussing it with anyone. I told him that as part of his punishment, he had to clean up his mess, meaning dispose of all of the rotting meat and either sufficiently cleaned and sanitized the freezer or purchase a new one out of his savings. He called me Nahal for making him interact with meat in any form, but he made the mess. He needs to clean it up. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I'm a vegetarian myself, and I'd argue what is done is worse because the deer have now died for no reason. Plus, it's not okay for him to intentionally ruin the family's groceries and waste money. Buying a new freezer might be overkill, but I don't think it's unreasonable at all to clean it. I'm wondering if the smell of the rot can ever truly be removed, and if it can't, if it'll contaminate the new meat. Not the a-hole. Can confirm. A tube of rotten turkey meat somehow ended up in my washing machine and ruined a load of laundry. It took filling the entire thing up with bleach or vinegar several times over the course of a week to tame the smell, and another 2 weeks of daily cleaning with several packages of the machine cleaner tabs to completely eradicate the smell. Chances are, the smell in Opie's freezer saturated the internal insulation. The entire units would be ruined if that's the case. 1000% not the a-hole. I'm fully vegan, have been for 4 years. I wouldn't even unplug someone's meat supply because it is against the whole point of being vegetarian or vegan. It forces additional deaths of animals completely unnecessarily. By the way, you hunting a couple deer a year that are on your property, and presumably of decent size and age, is actually quite vegan of you. Best of luck dealing with him. He needs education in not eating meat. This. If someone wants to get his head out of his behind and take stock of what his actions have cost, he will be in for a shock. This should be part of the punishment in my opinion. Get him to work through the implications of what is done. His parents are likely to end up buying at least some meat during the year, and they wouldn't have done if he had to destroy their store. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for threatening to sue my brother and forcing my parents to pay me to drop the lawsuit? My brother is a mechanic and started his own business, so our family decided to switch. My wife's car's brakes are at 20%, so she got them replaced there. But then she got into an accident the next day. She told me she slammed on the brakes, but it took so long for the car to stop and ended up rear-ending the next car. She has soft tissue damage from the accident and still has neck pain. My wife is a very safe driver, doesn't even speed and has never gotten a ticket. So I was suspicious and brought the car back to our original mechanic. He showed us that the new brakes were actually completely worn down, even worse than our original. I brought it up with my brother, and he admitted in person, he refused to give me a confession in writing, that he or his employee screwed up and put in worn-out brakes. I'm furious that he might have killed my wife, and I demanded he at least pay for the increase in my insurance premiums, increase of $67.50 per month. Over 5 years, so about $4,050, and $30 per day over 3 months, $2,700, for Uber rides for my wife, so she gets a break from driving after her accident. My brother refused, as he said he doesn't have the money and refuses to talk to us again. My wife told me to drop the matter so we could keep the peace, but I told her my brother can't get away with this. We start filing the paperwork for a lawsuit with a lawyer. And my parents get told about the lawsuit and rush over to tell me they'll write me out of their will if I sue my brother. I feel like an idiot for trusting him. He's always been a spoiled kid who thought he could get away with anything. So my parents rushing to defend him shouldn't be a surprise. So I told them I would only drop it if they took the amount out of his half of the inheritance. They paid what I asked, but told me I should be ashamed for betraying my own blood. I told them he should be ashamed for nearly getting my wife killed, though I'm not sure if threatening to sue my sibling was overboard. Now for the top comments. Not today, Hull. Tell them, fine, you'll drop the civil lawsuit and go to the police to file a criminal complaint. What he did is highly illegal. Yep. Even putting the actual fraud aside, sketchy mechanics like him almost always use hot parts. Wouldn't be shocked in the least if the brother already has criminal ties. His wife could have died. He needs to report him to the police. The brother is a ticking bomb and will get someone truly hurt, or worse, if he keeps practicing as a mechanic. Not today, Hull. In fact, if your wife is experiencing neck pain, I would go ahead and sue. Here's why. I'm an attorney working in motor vehicle accident defense claims. I am not your attorney, and this is not legal advice, just my personal opinion. Car accidents, even minor ones, can seriously mess up your spine for life. If your wife still has neck pain, she may have damaged her cervical spine. It will show up on an MRI. If that's the case, there's nothing that can be done for her besides physical therapy, and, when the damage inevitably gets worse down the line, a cervical spinal fusion. That thing costs money, and your wife is entitled to that money. She is also entitled to money for the emotional distress she has inevitably suffered after experiencing an accident caused by failing brakes, and the fact that she's uncomfortable driving now. All of that money is going to come to far more than $8,000. Think quadruple that amount, minimum. Plus, if your wife ever injures her neck/back again in an accident that she's not at fault for, whatever compensation she's entitled to is going to be hella reduced on the basis of pre-existing injuries for her prior accident. Best to get the money she's entitled to now, in case God forbid she needs it further down the line. And your brother won't be paying for it. His insurance company will. Make his premiums go up instead of your own, and let your wife receive the money she's entitled to. And if your parents would rather protect your brother, who could have been responsible for killing your wife, it may well be responsible for killing someone in the future if he doesn't learn his lesson, probably best to seriously reconsider your relationship with them. Wishing you both the best of luck. Not today, Hull. Look, I've worked in an auto shops and have thousands of brake jobs under my belt. And I'll tell you this was no accident. Your brother, or the technician who installed the brake pads, knew they were more worn than the original and did it anyway. There is absolutely no way that he could not, unless he employs someone else as a mechanic. It's possible that the wrong parts box was pulled by mistake, and instead of having a new set, whoever pulled apart pulled one of the core returns instead. This is really the only way I can figure that brake pads even more worn than the ones you came in with even got involved. But this would have been obvious to your brother, and should never have been put onto your vehicle. Somewhere along the way, he said screw it, possibly due to some time deadline or inability to find the right parts, and put them on anyway. And then he lied to you saying the job was completed. This is seriously messed up. This is negligence and fraud. If your wife had been killed, he could have been charged with negligent manslaughter. If this was deliberate sabotage, then you're possibly looking at attempted homicide. Like I said, this is seriously messed up. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to punish my daughter for not sharing her makeup with her younger sister? I'm a mother of two, Maya 17 and Roxanne 14. Both my daughters love makeup and beauty. When they were younger, I used to get them equal makeup tools. But now Maya has a job and buys her own makeup with different, more expensive, brands. And like Roxanne, Maya is responsible with her makeup and beauty products. She keeps them organized and doesn't lose them easily like Roxanne often does. As a result, Roxanne doesn't have much makeup stuff, and recently this issue occurred. Maya got paid last week and went shopping with her friends and bought makeup products. Roxanne saw the stuff Maya bought since they share a room, and then came to me and her dad complaining that Maya refuses to let her share/use the makeup products she bought. My husband asked Maya if it was true, and Maya said the makeup she bought cost her money and effort at the job, and didn't think it was fair to share with her sisters, and she keeps losing/ruining it all the time, forcing Maya to buy more and cost her more money and work. My husband told her that this wasn't right, and she should share the stuff she buys with her younger sister. Maya still said no, which caused my husband to say he'd punish her for how mean she was being towards her sister Roxanne. Maya still said no, and my husband told her to go upstairs. then turned to me and said Maya needs to be punished for treating her sister cruelly and making her cry. I told him I don't see a valid reason to punish Maya since she did nothing wrong. He was puzzled, chuckled and asked if I really don't see what's wrong with Maya's behavior. I responded that Maya worked hard to earn money and buy her makeup, which she rightfully deserves to keep for herself. He got upset and said I was treating the girls differently and showing heavy favoritism towards Maya. After I said I won't punish her for not sharing, I stated that it wasn't Maya's fault her sister keeps losing the makeup products. But he said Maya needs to learn to share with her sister since they both have the same interest in makeup. And by not punishing her, I'd be encouraging her to become selfish. But I don't see it. He called me negative and short-sighted for not understanding what he was talking about, and accused me of being more friend to Maya than a mom, which what I should be. The argument got worse, and my husband says it's my fault if Roxanne starts resenting her sister. Not today, Hole. Good for you. Let your husband start paying for the same makeup for the younger kiddo, and see how quickly he changes his mind that they should be equal. Perfect response. Not today, Hole. Seriously this. Tell your husband to share his money to your youngest so she can buy her own makeup. Not today, Hole at all. If you force Maya, she will end up resenting you and her sister. Maya's not the problem. She is responsible, works, saves up. By all accounts, she is doing everything right. Forcing her to share spoiling the younger sister. She's the one showing bad behavior, no respect for property, and entitlement towards other people's property, and jealousy. And you just do not reward bad behavior. Also, sharing makeup is not sanitary. It is a good way to spread eye infections and cold sores. Thank you. It's totally unsanitary to share makeup. Not today, Hole. It's unsanitary to share makeup, so she did the right thing saying no anyway. That's just what I was thinking. No one should share makeup.
Am I the a-hole for telling my brother-in-law I will never forgive his daughter, and I have no intention of ever having her near my family? So the people involved here, me, 30 female, my husband, 35 male, my older sister, 35 female, my sister's son Kevin, 14 male, her husband Joe, 40 male, Joe's daughter Kelly, 15 female. My sister had a blended family with her bio son, her husband, and her stepdaughter. I would say it was still a work in progress for them, but we all accepted and included Joe and Kelly into our lives. A few weeks ago, my husband and I organized a little get-together at our place to celebrate my birthday, and for people in our family to spend time with our 6-month-old son. The people present were my sister and her family plus our parents, so very intimate and chill. Everything went well, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. But some days after the gathering, my nephew Kevin came to our house and asked to speak to me about something concerning. For info, Kevin and Kelly attend the same school and have some mutual friends. My nephew told me that Kelly had been telling her friends that during the gathering, she saw her step-uncle's, my husband's, organ. She claimed she was in the bathroom. My husband entered without knocking, and he had his organ out, and that's how she ended up seeing it. This is absurd, because my husband does not do this even when we are alone in our home. And honestly, who does that when they know they have guests over? So I asked everybody who was present that day to meet at my parents' house and confronted Kelly. She started crying and confessed she lied to her friends. According to her, all of her girlfriends had already had some sort of intimacy and experiences, and she had none by that point. So she invented this story to look cool in front of her friends. I lost it. I called her a disgusting POS, a psychopath, and told her she risked my son's father's life just to boost her stupid social life among her friends. I told the rest of my family that, going forward, I will never bring my family near Kelly again. The consequences for this girl came fast. My nephew told everybody at school the truth. My sister and Joe went to the school and informed the principal about what happened, so in case any teacher heard that BS, they would know it was made up and not take action. My parents cut contact with her and will not host her in their house anymore. and my sister refuses to have Kelly live with them, so she was permanently moved to her mother's place. Before you start judging my sister for this, please keep in mind that she has a bio son who needs to be protected. If Kelly could so easily invent and tell those things about my husband, who can guarantee she will not lie about her stepbrother too? Now Joe is obviously hurt and torn about everything that happened. He keeps telling me that Kelly is depressed and wants to apologize to my family, but I keep refusing. I explained to him that I don't need her apology, and she shouldn't waste her time with this because I will never forget what happened or move past it. Joe keeps begging me to forgive her because she's just a stupid teenager, and maybe if my sister sees me forgiving her, she will be willing to eventually accept Kelly back. I told Joe that a stupid teenager can have the power to ruin a man's life and reputation, so I am not risking it. Also, I fully support my sister, and I want to protect my nephew too. Before Kelly was moved to her mother's, Kevin stayed with me and my husband for some days. So I don't regret my decision at all. I stand by everything that I said, but I feel bad for my brother-in-law. Regardless of how messed up his daughter is, he is a great guy, respectful, and he really values the concept of family and honesty. So I don't know. I guess I want to ask if I was the a-hole towards him. Now for the top comments. Kevin showed his maturity here. He realized how devastating this lie could be for your husband. He is an amazing kid indeed, and he is very close to my husband and me, and knew from the start everything was a lie. Has your brother-in-law and Kelly's mom put her into therapy? Because there is no way she didn't realize the danger to your husband by her lies. She's 15, not 5. The thing that everyone keeps forgetting is even though it sounds like an accident the way she told it, it could still end up with him being arrested and charged with indecent exposure to a minor. Even if found innocent, he would always have that stigma attached to him. People around here don't mess around when it comes to things like this. Exactly. Thank you for this. I left a lot out of the post because I am not sure what it's allowed here or not. But let's say that no sane adult who heard her story would ever think it was an accident. She provided some details and made some remarks that made it look like he flashed her. Good for you for dealing with it right away. All of your family's actions and reactions were prompt and on point. Kelly's very much in the faux after fa. Kids don't think ahead. Kelly's old enough to understand the damage that accusations like that can cause. I suspect she told a secret to a couple of friends and it snowballed. Joe's marriage is in for some tough times. I wonder if it will survive. Your sister should never let Kelly back in the house while her son is there, if ever. I do hope Kelly gets counseling. This is the kind of thing that will stay with her, the story that family whispers about. I read a similar story, but the stepfather was a teacher. It cost him his job, his volunteer work, and most of his friendships. He never got those back when it was found out she had made the whole thing up. His ex, who had believed the daughter, was devastated by the situation. He had of course left the family home during the investigation, but he went further and walked away from the relationship, the family, and instead sent divorce papers. She even offered to leave her family and go away with him. He refused and disappeared. OP, you are not the a-hole. The only a-hole here is Kelly. She acted impulsively and should pay the price. Let it go from your mind. You have a family to protect. Next story. Am I the a-hole for reporting threats made by my husband's kids and their mom to CPS, and then leaving because I'm pregnant? I, 30 female, have been married for the last 2 years and together with my husband, 33 male, for a little over 4.5 years. He's divorced with 2 children, 11 and 13, with his ex. I was not the other woman. They were not married when I met him and had been divorced for at least 3 years by that point. But the ex was very difficult once I moved in with my husband. It was something that could be managed by reducing contact back then, but she made it clear she didn't want her kids to have a stepmom, and she did voice to the kids that she did not want them to like or respect me. It didn't work right away, and we got along well at the start, but a few weeks after the wedding, there was a very clear change in the relationship. It wasn't unmanageable, and we went to therapy together to try and make things work well like they had previously. Things changed for the worse when I became pregnant. We told the kids, and they became angry. They told their mom, and she became angry. And then the kids were aggressive in speaking to me. There was a lot of F-yous and F-offs and get the heck out of here from them. I was called names. I was told to get an abortion by the 13-year-old. My husband was speaking to his kids and punishing them when needed. But it got worse. And then the kids showed me texts between them and their mom, where there were threats to me and my unborn child, which turned into them threatening to make sure I didn't give birth. They were serious enough that I had to call my husband home from work early because the kids were acting like they might just follow through. He disciplined them, and he told me that I shouldn't worry because they wouldn't really do it. I told him I wasn't sure about that, and he told me he wouldn't let anything happen. But it almost did. The 11-year-old attempted to make the threats a reality. I told my husband I was not putting myself or our baby at risk. He told me it wouldn't happen again, and he'd be dealing with it all around, but he had no answer as to what he could do, not even to say the kids would never be left with just me. And then more threats came as we were fighting about it. I told him I was not taking chances with my baby. I made a report to CPS, and then I moved out of the house I share with my husband and in with my parents. This is all very recent, but the CPS investigation is taking this seriously from what I can tell. My husband has reached out to me, and he expressed how hurt and angry he was that I took it this far. His parents have also done the same. They told me I took it too far, and I could have worked with my husband to make this safer for me. But I feel like I gave it a chance, but he was far too blasé about it, especially after the attempt. But maybe I'm overreacting, and I'm here to be told if that's true or not. I only want to keep my baby safe. Am I the a-hole? You did not overreact. He didn't tell his family the whole story. I bet they don't know about the text or the threats. Get a divorce lawyer and ask for supervised visitation only. File for a restraining order from his kids and ex-wife for you and your unborn child. Involve CPS in the custody case. They know the whole story. The texts were mentioned, but it didn't matter because his parents still think there was a better way to handle this. It worries me that they don't take this as seriously as me. I understand they love their grandchildren and my husband loves his children, but this baby is a grandchild or child too, and is at risk even if they don't want to believe it. Not the a-hole. You went above and beyond trying to create a safe environment. Your baby's safety comes first, period. For me it does, but I don't think my husband or his parents feel the same way. Or they're overconfident that they won't let it happen, when one attempt already happened and could have caused so much harm. Sorry to ask this, but what was the one attempt? That feels like a huge part that's being downplayed. The attempt would have led to the threats being followed through on, if it had succeeded. The attempt involved the stairs. The threats were all physical violence though, and some of it very graphic in nature. Next story. Am I the a-hole for drawing a line with my girlfriend about our involvement in her now pregnant and intellectually disabled sister? I've been with my long-term girlfriend for several years. Her sister has an intellectual disability. She functions roughly at the level of a 13 to 15-year-old. She's generally a good person, and I've always treated her with respect, but she clearly struggles in many areas, holding a job, managing adult responsibilities, and general aspects of society. Her family has supported her financially and emotionally for years. Recently, she married a man who is also intellectually disabled, although he seems somewhat more independent. A few weeks ago, I found out she's pregnant. According to my girlfriend, her sister wanted a baby because it would make her happy, and her parents are on board. They've expressed that the child can also take care of her sister when they grow up. Until then, they, and possibly the husband's family, plan to help raise the child. I reacted negatively when I heard this. From everything I know and have seen, I honestly don't think she can safely or responsibly raise a child on her own. The idea that the baby is being brought into the world with the expectation that it will be the caretaker someday feels deeply unfair, to the child most of all. I brought up these concerns with my girlfriend. She supports her sister's decision, but when I asked if she'd feel comfortable leaving our future baby with her sister for a week, she admitted she wouldn't. That honestly just reinforced my concerns. I told her that while I respect her sister, I want it to be crystal clear between us that I disagree with the decision and that I will refuse us taking on any extra sort of a parenting help or be financially burdened in the future by this. I'm not okay with the idea that our future family, or me personally, would be expected to step in and support her sister's child long-term, outside of normal uncle-aunt interactions. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I had to reread the child can take care of her sister when they grow up part like 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. That's actually an insane take. Having a child, putting it in an environment where you know it won't be properly cared for because the parents aren't mentally or physically equipped, and justifying it all with it'll be the carer is horrible. Not the a-hole. Honestly, you sound like the only sane one that's given any thought about that little human in this entire situation. Also, with both parents being intellectually disabled, isn't there a certain probability that the child inherits some of their disabilities and needs help themselves, rather than being able to give it? I knew a couple who both had intellectual disabilities, raising 2 children with average intelligence. The kids passed their parents' functioning levels at about 10, and it was an absolute mess. The kids were running the house, and if the parents tried to set boundaries, the kids could easily manipulate the parents and get around them. The parents had no control, and the kids had increasingly severe behavioral issues. They ended up having a sister move in and take over parenting entirely, which got the kids under control pretty quickly, but led to resentment from the parents, who felt usurped. It was a mess. They did end up giving custody to the sister, and the couple moved out and had another baby. APS and CPS need to be involved here. One of my closest friends had almost the same situation about 10 years ago now. Sister with an intellectual deficiency married a guy who also had an intellectual deficiency. They got pregnant. They couldn't take care of the baby, and my friend has had guardianship since the baby was 5 days old. If she hadn't said yes to the guardianship, baby would have been placed for adoption. Has anybody even considered that as an outcome? It sounds like the grandparents might be willing to step up and do that if needed, but there's a difference between saying they will and actually doing the thing when it comes down to it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for pulling away from my parents because they always decide to break bad news on important days for me? This was a long-running thing with my parents, and something my siblings, 19 and 17, commented on. I, 21 male, am the oldest of 3. And starting at a young age, my parents have made weird decisions about breaking bad news. It started when I was 7. I was the lead in our school play, and 20 minutes before the play starts, my parents decided to announce my great-grandma was dying. They had known about it for days at that point and waited to tell us and said they needed a good moment. Then they acted super shocked when I bawled in front of everyone. I messed up the whole play and couldn't get a single line right. Then when I was 9, it was the day of my assessment for learning disabilities. My parents announced on the way home that Dad had lost his job 3 weeks prior, so they could have waited another day or 2 to tell us, and we'd have to make a lot of changes in our lives. At the time, I wondered if they saw my learning disabilities as a burden on top of everything and resented me for it. The morning of my 10th birthday party, not my actual birthday but a few days after, they told us they had to put our dog down 2 days before and had not sent him to our grandparents' house for a few days to not have him running around during the party. They announced they were getting a divorce on my 15th birthday. My mom waited until my graduation to announce she was diagnosed with cancer. She'd known for 2 months, just waited, and again on a day important for me. When I moved out for college, I dropped the rope. I didn't call or text. I didn't even check in on Mom. I spoke to my siblings every day, sometimes twice a day, but I didn't invest in my relationship with my parents. I didn't go to either house for Christmas or summer break. I figured out other stuff. They called a few times and I answered, but I would always make it short and to the point. My siblings said my parents thought I was just being a typical first-time college kid, but it started to get more obvious by the first Christmas after I moved out. They avoided bringing it up until this summer, when they saw on Insta that I moved into an apartment with 3 of my plans, and we decided to put down roots here. They brought up the elephant in the room and I was honest. They asked me why I never talked to them about it, and I said it wasn't something I should have to bring up, because they weren't announcing things as they happened. They'd wait and that crap felt intentional. I said they didn't forget when my birthday was, or that I was 10 minutes away from performing in the school play. And the lack of sensitivity made them less approachable. Both of them think I was petty to pull away for this. My siblings think they're just heavily in denial. Am I the a-hole? Your parents think you're wrong to pull away because how are they ever going to screw up an important day for you ever again if you don't give them the chance to? Not the a-hole. Enjoy your peace. Your folks use you as an emotional punching bag and you're under no obligation to allow them to do that to you. Abusers get annoyed when they lose control of their victims. Not the a-hole. Tell them you didn't want them to know you got an apartment and then be told the next day that an uncle died a year ago. Or when you graduate, then they can tell you that they have to move across the country the next day. And heaven forbid you get married. And on the day they announce they got a divorce the year before, and each of them is getting married to other people next month. You stop the pattern, because when people are at their happiest, is not the time to share bad news. Nor is it when they are at their lowest, but the best time is as soon as possible from the knowledge of the event. Even the putting down of the dog could have been a discussion a month before, with time to say goodbye. Not getting to say goodbye to him really sucked. My siblings and I loved him, and he was in our family before any of us were born. So to go from he's at our grandparents to now he's dead was very traumatic. Am I the a-hole for not letting my bio dad and his wife adopt me and refusing to comply with family therapy? There's a lot of background, but I'll condense it down for everyone and make it easy to follow. My bio dad walked out when I was a few months old. He and my mom weren't married, and the three of us had lived with bio dad's parents. After bio dad walked out, me and mom continued living with them. My mom died when I was 3. Before she died, she had my grandparents adopt me. She got my bio dad to sign off on it, which he did, and my aunts and uncles said he was happy to do it. Grandpa died when I was 9 and my grandma when I was 13. Grandma tried to get him to take some interest in me after Grandpa died, but he didn't. I lived with my uncle for a few months until my bio dad fought for custody and won. I didn't know my bio dad at that point. The only time I saw him was at Grandpa and then Grandma's funerals. I was almost 14 when I sent to live with my bio dad and his family. I'm 17 now. I didn't want to live with my bio dad. I wanted to live with my uncle or any of my aunts and uncles. I know them, grew up with them. They were in my life this whole time. But bio dad being bio dad won out with a judge who dismissed everything my therapist said. Now that I'm here, I'm pretty angry at him for pulling me away from everyone I know and love. Even 3 years later, I'm still angry at him. He's married and has 5 kids under 10. All of them have tried to get me to give in and become a part of their family, but I'm not willing to do that. So my bio dad and his wife decided the 3 of us need family therapy. They also wanted me to give my consent to them adopting me. Bio dad tried to adopt me when he got custody, but the judge did listen to me on that, and I refused to give my consent. I sit in therapy every week and I don't engage. We've cycled through about 7 therapists in 2 years, and they're trying to find someone who can make me engage. They're also giving me more grief for refusing the adoption. Some of bio dad's kids ask me to please be their brother and be adopted and be family. I always tell them their parents are not mine and I don't belong in this family, that I belong with my family. It upsets them, which angers bio dad and wife, but I won't give in just for random kids. My uncle tried to fight for custody again a few months ago, but again my wishes were dismissed. I told my bio dad if he let me go, I might not hate him and his whole family. He told me he wants me to embrace the family, not move away and never see them again. My dad's wife's parents are at their house all the time. They started to scold me over rejecting the adoption and not participating in therapy. I told them to mind their own business a few times. Bio dad told me it was unacceptable, and I needed to stop being this way. He told me he's my real dad, and him adopting me corrects a mistake that was made. I told him I'll never let it happen. The therapist we're currently in sessions with is also pushing me to accept the adoption, even though I don't engage. I'm so sick of this, and I've got a countdown going for my 18th birthday when my uncle comes to get me. But am I the a-hole for being so stubborn with my positions? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Time to wait it out. You'll legally be an adult soon. Start making a plan. Speak privately with your uncle and move out that day. My uncle's coming for me on my birthday and taking me home. Make sure if they have any stuff you need, like social security or birth certificate, that you collect that before you go. And anything of sentimental value, because once you leave, you probably won't be able to get any of that back. If you can start slowly moving that stuff to a trusted adult or friend's house so it's not noticeable, and if there is a big to-do when your uncle picks you up, you aren't forced to leave things behind. Everything sentimental I left with my uncle. When the move happened, I was not on board, and to protect myself, I went with a few clothes and nothing else. There was no way I was taking anything like that to Bio Dad's place. I'll never understand parents who abandon one kid and then go and have family and kids with another person. Don't give in to their pressure. Your uncle is a hero, not the a-hole. I've heard the argument that people can grow up, but then you don't have the right to expect the kid or kids you left to go yay for the new family. You don't have the right to expect them to become a part of it. Has a lawyer explained anything about your grandparents' will and estate? Are you aware of any restrictions on what your legal guardian can access? Maybe find out about locking down credit just in case. I'm sorry you had so much loss. Soon you'll be able to go where you choose. I never talked to a lawyer about any of that. When I move back home, I will. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not moving back in with my mom and hanging up on her when she called me crying that she missed me and wanted me back? My dad died when I, 17, was 11. My mom dated for a while, but nothing serious until she met Dan. Dan's a single dad with 2 kids, 4 and 6, and after dating for almost 2 years, they moved in together 3 months ago. I was cool with it until 2 incidents happened in a week. First one was coming home to the kids in my room, and my room was trashed. I'd made my bed before school and they'd pulled it apart. My clothes were all over the floor. The 4-year-old has pissed himself and the evidence was left visible on my piles of clothes. My mom had taken the kids out of the room and cleaned up the 4-year-old, but left my room as it was for me to clean up. I was angry. Dan explained it away as they're just young kids and told me not to be mad. I told him to watch his kids and keep them out of my room. Mom told me not to be mad at anyone and that these things happen. I said not if they kept an eye on the kids. I asked if I should go in and do the same to their room. Dan told me I'm old enough to know better. I told him to make his kids clean it, and Mom and Dan were quick to say they were too young to do that. The same thing happened a week later, only without the 4-year-old pissing himself this time. And this time they wrecked the photo of me and my dad that was in my room, and they broke the office chair I had in there. This time I lost it on my mom and told her that I was getting the heck out of there, and she could keep Dan and his little brats to herself because I wasn't dealing with it. Mom told me not to be so rash and said I just needed to calm down. Dan stood in front of the door to stop me from leaving. He said my mom's heart would break if I left. I told him I wasn't living with him and his kids. I went to stay with my grandparents, and my mom expected me to stay at most a week or 2 and then come home or whatever. But I see this as home now. Not having my room trashed or the bathroom all messy and gross from Dan's kids has been so good. And I'm so mad about that photo. I had a copy, but it wasn't the point. My mom's only now starting to accept I'm not coming back. She apologized a few times, but I ignored her. She called the other day and cried and told me she missed me and wanted me to come home and she'd do anything. I hung up before she could finish, and it didn't convince me to move back in, which sent Dan off on a rant at me over voicemail about how selfish I'm being and how I'm hurting my mom. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, obviously. Are you saying Dan's children pissed in your room and trashed your room twice, and Dan wasn't the one to clean up the mess his children made? And your mother and Dan both watched you clean up their mess yourself? No repercussions for these 2 children? Dan and your mother are both gigantic a-holes and deserve each other. Made Dan's little darlings piss in his and your mother's bed in the future twice a day. The first time, yep, I had to clean my room up after them, and it took almost 2 hours, and even then, it had to be aired out, and my clothes all had to be washed. The second time I packed up some stuff and I left, so unless they cleaned it after I left, it would still be in a mess. No repercussions for the kids. Honestly, I was the one punished because I had to clean up after them. What do your grandparents think of this situation? It was super nice of them to take you in. My grandparents are upset Mom let this happen. They got along well with her before this, and even met Dan and had bought his kids Christmas gifts last year. They hate the fact she did it so close to when I was 18 too. Like she doesn't care because I'm almost out of her house anyway. Not the a-hole. All they had to do is help you clean up, put a lock on your door, and discipline the brats. Their plan of having a live-in babysitter is gone. That is the real reason right there. The free babysitter is gone. Women who chose men over their own kids are disgusting. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting angry at a nurse who claimed my daughter isn't mine? So my partner and I adopted our daughter 2 years ago. We don't have any biological children, and we don't really plan to just yet. Our daughter is 6 years old now. She does understand that she's adopted, and we've made it clear time and time again that even though she didn't come from my belly, we still love her and treat her as if she did. The other day, I took her to a pediatrician because she said that one of her ears felt full. She did have a cold last week, so that was expected, and he said that her ear would drain out eventually. All good, the nurse comes in with a discharge sheet and commented that she would have never assumed that I was the mother of my daughter since I look nothing like her, which I don't, for obvious reasons. So then I said, oh yeah, we adopted her, so that's why she doesn't look like me or my husband. Then this nurse goes, oh okay, so she isn't your daughter. I was a little confused because I thought I had just explained this whole situation. I said again, she is my daughter. We adopted her a few years back. The nurse says, but technically she isn't your daughter, and her real mom is somewhere else. I was really upset because what the actual f***? I said again, but she is my daughter, and I am her mom. The nurse kind of sighed and said, okay, maybe legally you are, but her real mom is the one that gave birth to her. My daughter was looking up at me, kind of confused, and I can't even imagine what was going through her head. I had enough. I said to this nurse, what the hell is wrong with you? I keep telling you that I am her mother, and you keep denying that in front of my daughter no less. The nurse goes, I'm just stating a fact. Biologically, she's not yours. I went again. Yeah, because she's adopted. We adopted her and gave her a home. What, I have to push her out of my vagina to be her mother? The nurse goes, well, that's the dictionary definition of what a mom is. I had enough. I told her to wash her mouth of the BS she had been saying at me and my daughter, and I left and went home. I was really shaken up at this point, and still was when we got home, and my husband noticed. I told him what had happened. He told me that the nurse was really dumb for saying that, but I shouldn't have blown up on her like that. Am I the a-hole Reddit? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole and report the nurse. No medical professional should be saying in front of a child that you aren't her real mom due to their bias. Especially in a pediatrician's office where this kind of thing has to come up all the time. You definitely need to discuss this with the pediatrician. She was completely out of line. Absolutely, I plan to bring it up with the pediatrician. I think it's important to address this calmly so it doesn't happen again. Everyone deserves respectful care, especially kids. The sooner you address it, the better. Even better in writing. I'm so angry for you. That nurse clearly has issues of her own and doesn't know how to put that aside when treating patients. Report it to the practice manager and the state licensing board, not the petty. Report it to all of them. At every good pediatric office I've ever used, the doctor would also want to know if office staff behaved like this, if for no other reason than to make sure they don't stick their necks out for her when her crap hits her fan. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter's husband see her after her birth? I, 47 female, have a daughter, 24 female named Lila, who just gave birth to her first child. I don't know much, but I know that she and her husband, Matt, 27 male, have been having issues on what to name their child. Matt wants to name their baby a ridiculous name, which I won't specifically name here, but it's a month, and not something like June, May, or April. Something like October with a middle name that's a color, and once again not something like Violet or Scarlet. Meanwhile, Layla wants a more practical name. Because of all this, they have been in marriage counseling, which hasn't seemed to work. A week ago, Layla gave birth but had to stay hospitalized because of complications. Right after her birth, she was very out of it and wasn't in her right mind. Matt took advantage of this, and when I asked him what they were going to name their baby, he stated the name he wanted. I knew Layla wouldn't like this, and that it was supposed to be a joint decision, so I didn't allow him to sign anything, which resulted in him not being able to legally sign off as her father. When Layla woke up, she thanked me for it, but Matt has been refusing to see their baby. What was supposed to be a beautiful phase in their life has been spoiled by his family bombarding her with texts and calls. Now I'm starting to think I may have gone too far, since he hasn't seen his baby in weeks. Am I the a-hole? Edit. To be clear, Matt was hours away at the time of Layla's birth. I asked him what they were going to name their baby on call, and when I heard his response, I didn't tell him which hospital we were at, so he had no way of coming in and signing anything. There are two issues here that people keep focusing on. 1. OP didn't tell the father where the hospital was, so he could not sign any paperwork. 2. OP's daughter was medically incapacitated and unable to exert her own rights after birth, and her husband was planning on taking advantage of that to name the baby something she has firmly refused. Both of these are big issues. I can feel some sympathy for a father missing out on his child's birth, but the fact that he planned to take advantage of his wife at her most vulnerable moment just to get his way is frankly disgusting. Had he not done that, OP would have told him what hospital that they were at, and the paperwork would already be done. This seems to me like a case of the father facing the repercussions of his own actions. He could have just acted with integrity and waited for his wife to recover to decide the name. And also, where is his concern for his wife in all this? His first thought is not to worry about her condition, but to win a point on the baby's name? And now he's pouting and refuses to see her? What a child. We don't have all the information, but overall, I'm with OP on this one. Everyone sucks here to not the a-hole, but if it were my daughter, I'd probably do the same. Yeah, I think a lot of people saying you should have stayed out of it are ignoring two huge, toxic, and dangerous things this husband is doing. Taking advantage of his incapacitated wife to make sole decisions, and then refusing to see the baby for weeks. I don't know how to explain to the people who are upset OP denied the husband the right to see the birth that refusing to see the baby for weeks is worse. He's denying himself days and days and days on end from his own newborn over a name, rather than actually being there for said newborn and the woman who birthed their child and spent time recovering longer in the hospital. It's giving the same vibes as people who equate an insult to being on the same level as punching someone. Right. It's very hard to stay out of it when one of the people is incapacitated and can't actually say what they want. Wait, he didn't know what hospital she was giving birth at? Was he completely uninvolved in her pregnancy? Just like he's completely uninvolved with the baby now, he's consistent at least.